Hello, I'm Jennifer Lawrence. I volunteer as tribute, and you're watching Fangeared. Our esteemed leader's having us do a video retrospective of our favorite games from the last console generation. So today, I'm here to talk to you about Dead Space 2. It wasn't an easy choice, but in the end, Dead Space 2 just wins my heart. Dead Space 2 is my favorite game from the console generation for a couple of reasons. For starters, it took what was good about the first game and really enhanced it. Dead Space 2 was just possessed of a really solid, real design that I really appreciate as an artist. Since it's the second game in the series, they really took the opportunity to flesh out a lot of the aspects of the universe that they didn't really touch on in the first game, not the least of which is Isaac, the main character. They really fleshed out Isaac's character in this game, and it was really gratifying because it gave us something more to connect with than just a blank slate. And although that's good in some games, that trend kind of died out a couple years ago. Isaac is really given a lot more life and a lot more vitality in this game than he was in the last game. We get to see his face, for starters. One of the big things about Isaac's face being visible in this game is that we didn't really get to naturally see it at all in the first game. We get a lot more characterization from Isaac in this game, and it's really gratifying to see because he's a really interesting character. And they did a lot of very interesting things with his portrayal. In the first game, Isaac was a bystander who was thrust into this situation at a random. He didn't really have any training, he's not a soldier, he doesn't really know how to fight, and he's just tossed into this situation, given a bunch of mining tools, and told to go screw up ghosts and demons. In the second game, though, we see the transformation that living through the trials of the USG Shimura has rendered on Isaac. He's battle-hardened, he knows what he's doing, he certainly knows better than everybody else on the Sprawl. And, for the most part, he's more grounded. In the first game, all we got of Isaac's characterization were the occasional grunts and snarls, but in this game, we get to hear him talk and interact with other people. And it really gives you a sense of what Isaac is going through, both in his mind and having to shoot massive, crazy alien zombie demons.
You're a dangerous secret, Isaac.
I'm not running anymore.
Speaking of which, there are a lot of really important relationships that are portrayed in the second Dead Space game. For starters, we see a return from Nicole, Isaac's deceased girlfriend, from the first game. Now, you might be saying to yourself, but wait a minute, if she's dead, how come she's appearing in the second game? To which I would respond, well, you see, the marker is causing him to have hallucinations. To which they might say, I guess that makes sense. We have a new dynamic between Nicole and Isaac in this game that wasn't present in the last one. Nicole plays the role of an active antagonist in this game, ushering you through many parts of the game simply by fear. She appears in your dreams as a crazy psychopath with monstrous glowy eyes and a glowy mouth, which is really creepy, by the way. She shows up in hallucinations throughout the game. Other than your deceased ex, you have Ellie, who is a pilot who you meet about halfway through the game. Ellie presents a different mechanic to the game that wasn't present in the first one, in that she's a protagonist who actually gets stuff done, and you see her getting things done. Now, in the first game, we had Hammond, who kind of a little helped you throughout the game, but you were mostly on your own. But in this game, the Sprawl is still in the middle of being overcome, so of course you're going to see a lot more civilians in the mix. And Ellie is one of those civilians. However, she kicks everybody's ass. Even after losing her eye, she manages to keep her momentum going and finish through the game still alive, which is an impressive feat in a survival horror game when you're not the main protagonist. Speaking of side protagonists, at the very beginning of the game we're introduced to Nolan Stross, kind of a creepy fella who's in the same psychiatric institution that Isaac wakes up in. Although he turns out to have more than just one screw loose at the beginning, Stross's development from only slightly crazy to major nutcase is very important because it symbolizes the change that Isaac could go through if he doesn't keep his stuff together. Finally, there's the main antagonist, Tideman. Tideman represents sort of a more vocal, in-depth villain than any of the other villains we've seen before. The Necromorphs, although compelling, are kind of one-dimensional, as in they just run at you, scream, get their limbs chopped off, and die. But Tideman is an actual living force against which you have to strive to make it through the game. Also, he's a massive douchebag, which makes it fun to kill him. I touched on this a little bit when I was talking about Nicole, but there have been a lot of horror updates to the second game. One of the things that made the first game a little dry was that it was just all jump scares. You really didn't have a whole lot of psychological horror in there to mix it up, although the revelation about Nicole at the end of the game was certainly a good one. In this game, though, Your mind is constantly being played with. Nicole represents a big part of the psychological horror bump that you witness in this game. Part of the reason she's so creepy in the hallucinations you have of her is that sometimes she'll interact with objects that are present in the real world, whether it's a pair of swing sets, a nightlight, or something completely random. The game really messes with your mind a lot more in this game than it did in the first one, and that's a really important thing to boost the replay value and to make it a lot less dry. In the first game, the ambience that you got from the USG Ishimura as a dead ship with lots of creaking was very important to the game's overall atmosphere. But in this game, the Sprawl is still alive. It may be in its dying gasps, but it's still alive. And that also plays a major part of the game's ambience. All of the Dead Space games have had really good ambience and atmosphere, but Dead Space 2 sticks out to me because you get to witness the frenzied dying gasps of this massive station. You get to hear the dying screams of people in the earlier levels, but by the end of the game, it's just as creaky and vacant as the Ishimura was before it. The overall design of the game is another thing that really sticks out for me as an artist, particularly. I go into games now really looking at the things that make the game pop artistically. And the Sprawl is very well designed. It feels well inhabited. It feels like an actual place that people lived in at one point in time. And it feels like it's getting the crap torn out of it by evil zombie aliens. The Sprawl's role as a background isn't just extended to a place that you move through. The Sprawl itself is a character. The way you interact with it and the way that you play your part in this massive tale really highlights the way that the game's designers put the thought into making this game. You have a lot of really interesting scenery, and that's highlighted by the creatures that you have crawling through it. A lot of your zombie games have your typical recycled designs, but the thing that really sticks out to me about Dead Space, in particular, and Dead Space 2, is that the creature designs are very unique. It's not just that you have humans who are slightly mutated, as in other horror genres. You have massively twisted limbs and broken necks and stuff like that you have to look at, because if you don't, they're going to kill you. It's really intriguing, and it really heightens the sense of urgency when something's crawling at you on broken legs. The sense of, it shouldn't be able to do that, is very well represented in this game. Isaac's design in particular always interested me, because in the first game and the second game, a lot of the armor you encounter is regular engineer armor that you would be putting on for a regular job anyway. It's the same thing with the weapons. In the second game, you get some more military weapons and suits, but overall, the aesthetic of these things should not be being used as weapons and armor still remains. Finally, one of the things that really intrigued me about this game is that the entire final level, in a way, is a boss battle. From your very first encounter with the new and improved Regenerator that chases you through the rest of the level, to Nicole's boss battle, and then the final sequence when you're trying to reach Ellie's ship, is very impactful for me because it doesn't feel like one single boss battle. The final confrontation with Nicole for me was a little trite in my opinion, but because the entire last level is so well designed and so urgent, it forces me to kind of include it all as one big boss battle. Finally, the soundtrack on this game is marvelous. The thing that really stands out to me is that it's not too present. The thing is that they really make use of their ambience, but when it's important, these high strings come in and really highlight everything. Plus, they got a couple of good artists to play on their trailers. Smashing Pumpkins' Bullet with Butterfly Wings for one trailer, and Russian Circles for their other one. All in all, Dead Space 2 is a really excellent game, and I'm really glad I got the chance to play it. As you can see, I'm a huge fan of the game. And it really changed the way I look at games. It's a really impactful game, and I highly recommend you play it if you haven't already. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate every follower. And please tell me what you liked about the second Dead Space game, or the first one, or the third one, whatever you want. This is Jennifer Lawrence, signing off.